We used to have magnets, and that's going to help you either get something like iron or some kind of metal. It's attracted to metal, so it'll help you pick up things that are metal. Also, it attracts. There's also times where it will repel on magnets. Okay, so let's take a look at some of our tools. The other thing I didn't show you was a test tube. And a test tube is what they're using now with the coronavirus in order to test people's viruses and other things. They're going to use a test tube like this, and they're going to put and see if it has a chemical reaction to it, which means when the chemicals are combined together to see what would happen. And to see if somebody, so they use a lot of test tubes with medicine. They also put blood samples in here because if they need to test somebody's blood. So this goes a lot with the medical field. So that's another test tube that we could use. We might use a couple of these in the classroom this year. Okay, what I want to ask you is a couple of questions. What would I use to measure the mass of Play-Doh? Awesome. If you said that you would use a triple beam balance, you are correct. You could use a triple beam balance to measure the mass of an item. And remember, they're measured in grams. So if I wanted to measure the Play-Doh, I'm going to stick it on my triple beam balance, and then I'm going to see what's the weight. And of course, it has to be zeroed out over on the other end, which is hard to say. I know, hard for you guys to see. So this one right here is going to be, this has to go down to make sure it's even. So in order to do that, I have to play around with the different kinds of weights in order. Well, that was too much weight, so I know it can't go to 100 grams, but maybe I can go to 20. No, that's too small. I'm trying to even it out. So this container, about 80. Oh, I got to about 90 and then it dropped. Oh, there we are, almost evening it out a little bit. Let me go a little bit smaller to 80. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my other part of my scale, just like what you do when you go to the doctors. Have you gone to the doctors? They kind of might use a scale like this in order to weigh you. They're trying to see how much mass you have, how many grams you are. And this is 87 grams, this Play-Doh. Very cool. All right, so if I'm gonna use to measure the mass of something, I might use my triple beam balance. I could also use a scale. There's some other items that we'll talk a little bit more about that we can use. Okay, if I wanted to measure the volume of my water, what would I use? Awesome. If you said a graduated cylinder, you are correct. I'm gonna use the smaller one because I don't have that much water. And this is covering my volume, so I'm measuring the volume. When I look at it, I can go to my volume, and it's kind of hard to see for you guys, but it's actually at 150 milliliters. And if I tip it, it's gonna go different ways, so you can't really see it. But right there, 150 milliliters. And that's measuring the volume of how much water I have. Okay, and what would I use to measure my pen? Awesome, if you said a ruler, you're 100% correct. I'm gonna measure it in centimeters, and that's that cm right there. Make sure that my pen goes all the way to the end. Oh, okay, it looks like it's 13, and it's right in between the 13 and the 14, so it's gonna be 13.5 centimeters. If I measure in inches, I flip it around, I can measure it in inches. Again, make sure that's lined up. Okay, yep, it looks like about 5 inches and a quarter. Because that's a half right there, so that's gonna be a quarter, and that's gonna be a quarter. So that's 5 1/4 inches. Now I could definitely round down and only say 5 inches if I wanted to. But if I want to be exact, I'm going to make sure I look at that little tab. All right, another thing, how can I get this? How can I get my iron out of the sand? What would I use? Awesome. If you said magnet, you're 100% correct. Look at all the iron that came out of my sand. Super cool. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue with our PowerPoint. We're going to have a little discussion about why scientists need to use the right tools. And then you guys have a small assignment today. Good job.